Well, one of the main things that my listeners want to see right now, want to talk about right now, is definitely 1010 and Robotaxi. And I know that you've been posting about that to some extent. What are you hoping to see on 1010? What is your...
Well, let's start with what I'm expecting to see. I'm
Okay.
expecting to see the Robotaxi vehicle without a steering wheel or pedals.
Right.
And the manufacturing method, or an intro to the manufacturing method for how they're going to make it. And it's the unbox process and more.
Okay.
People think it's only the unbox process. It's more than that.
Okay.
And I think they're going to give us more detail on the motors and how they're reducing silicon carbide. And I think there's some other rare earths, how they're reducing rare earths and silicon carbide and manufacturing. How they're going to manufacture in high volume at low cost. Unbox process, I'm sure, a part of it. Maybe how they're going to incorporate it. I'm not sure whether Optimus is an important part of the manufacturing process for the Cybercab. Okay. We'll call it the Cybercab.
At least initially.
I know some people think that the unbox process includes Optimus. I don't think Optimus is ready yet. I don't think Optimus is at the level necessary to be able to be meaningfully contributing to manufacture of vehicles yet. Could be somewhat useful, maybe, but not dramatically useful. It's not going to replace 90% of labor. Right. It might replace 5% of labor, and so that's not a game changer. So the second thing I think we're going to see, and I think it's extremely like we're going to see this, is we're going to see the first production version of Optimus. Okay. Elon talked about it on the All-In pod that they have a new arm. He talked about the iteration path that he expects a new version every less than 2 years. Right. And then he said in about 5 years we'll have version 3. Well, it means we've got version 1 right now. Version 1 is October 10. We're going to see it, and I think they're going to manufacture version 1 in low volume, 10,000 units a year, something like that. I think that'll be the target manufacturing for version 1. I don't know if it's that much, because I think the intent is version 1 will be used only in Tesla factories, and I don't know if they have the demand for 10,000 robots in all their factories. They have a lot of factories. You talked about 1 or more thousands in 2025, so that would fit. It's well, if you ramp to by the end of 2025, you're making 10,000 a year, maybe, and you need a volume of robots to be able to generate the data to train. Right. So to some extent, they need a volume of robots so they can train, and they need a volume of robots so they can learn for manufacturing the next generation robot after that. And he said he expects that the third iteration of the humanoid robot will be good enough that they'll be producing 1 million a year. I think the ballpark is in 2030 they'll produce 1 million Optimus robots. So let me pivot a little bit to, as a shareholder. And by the way, I woke up this morning, I think it was Hallmar's blog posted something about the stock price. I went and checked the stock price, like, oh, I went and checked my portfolio. I'm up a lot. Like, I own a lot of Tesla stock, right? So it's like, oh, okay. I take that with a grain of salt, because it can go up 6% one day and down 10% the next day. And I just don't, it's 240 now. It could be 150. But it was a good day. But I'm not selling stock, so it doesn't matter. Right. So when I look at the future of Tesla stock, I don't think that 1010 is going to make a difference at all. Unless something very unusual happens. I think that the triggers for the stock to go where it should be, which is much, much higher than 240, right? It's like, more than 500, approaching 1,000 or higher. The triggers are a Robotaxi fleet actually operating at some level. Some level of measurable revenue and cost of goods sold. Supervised is okay? No, unsupervised. Oh, so until it's unsupervised, you're not there. If they put a supervised Robotaxi network out there, that won't move the stock. No. Okay. Because you still have the high cost of the person in the car. No, I understand that, but it would be the next level. No, because I don't think that Wall Street's not going to buy it until the car is driving unsupervised. All right. Okay. So you need unsupervised, and I don't believe that I don't see a place for Tesla to have a supervised Robotaxi network. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't say, I can see it. It just, I don't think that's the right path.
Okay.
And by the way, I think Tesla should buy Lyft.
Really? Wow. You're
Lyft's
really,
market cap is, that's another topic we could talk about. But anyway, before we go there, once you have a functioning robotaxi fleet of any size, 10 vehicles, 100 vehicles, and you can demonstrate, here's our revenue, here's our cost of goods sold, it's an unsupervised fleet.
right.
This is our growth path.
Right.
Now the Wall Streeters can model it.
Right.
Okay. Same thing with Optimus. I think Optimus working in Tesla factories is harder for Wall Street to see. So I think it's when you start selling robo-taxis or Optimus or Optimus services, you might be leasing Optimus rather than,
right.
But when you start generating revenue by selling Optimus or leasing Optimus to customers.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we're going to see Optimus affecting the stock meaningfully, like the kind of jump that we should be seeing until 2026 at the earliest, because I think on the second iteration of Optimus, they may start selling to customers. Mm-hmm. We know now that Semi is going to start selling to customers beyond Pepsi, I think towards the end of this year, early next year. I think Dan Priestley said they're going to start selling they've got other customers that are lining up to start selling Semi. So, the Pepsi was a start. So you can start to model Semi. I don't think Wall Street has really modeled Semi yet.
Probably not.
Because I see, let's just talk about that briefly. This is going to be in my video, but no, I don't think this is in my video. I see 250,000 semis a year.
250,000
at a ballpark of $300,000 or $400,000 a year sale price.
Okay.
So that's $75 billion, $100 billion a year in revenue.
By when?
That's a few years away.
Okay.
That's, I think we have a fully functioning factory in Nevada ramped by the end of 2026, selling 50,000 semis a year. It's a little optimistic, but maybe early 2027. Dan Priestley said the next market after North America is Europe. I think he's probably not being completely open. I think the clear next market for semi is China. China, people don't know this. China buys, I think, more semis than the rest of the world combined.
Something like that, on that order, yes.
Well, North America is around 300,000 a year. Europe is around 250,000 a year. India, maybe 100,000 a year. And I don't think the Indian semis are the same class.
There's what they call large trucks everywhere.
I'm just saying the class, the diesel semi that we think of in American roads with 18 wheels and, carrying an 80,000 pound total payload, including the vehicle. That's US, I think Europe, I think China, and outside of those locations, there's not a lot of market for it. So China is 1 million a year plus. And the US and Europe combined is probably 600,000, less than 600,000. So China is and it's easier to build a factory in China. It's easier to get batteries in China.
Sure. Oh, yeah. The total addressable market worldwide is 4 million for large trucks and semis. Brian Wong has done all the work on this. He's got it, not class 8 work trucks like the diesel semi we think of. That's a smaller market. That's about 2 million a year. But there's a combination.
There's a next level,
right?
That semi probably does compete in,
right?
That probably you get to 4 million or more,
right?
But at the full on the 18-wheeler size, the thing that the semi is really engineered for to do at high volume, whatever. I definitely think they can make a semi that will carry smaller loads, and the 300-mile range version. If you modify that a bit, you probably get the cost down a lot because you've got 60% of battery. I could see a lot of that. Because battery cost is a big chunk of the cost.
And Priestley talked about a bunch of different versions. So
I think he was talking about things like sleeper cab version versus.
Oh, really? Okay.
300 mile, 500 mile. Yeah, I think that maybe there's more. You might be right. All right, so I maybe I took us off top. Oh no, I wanted to talk about Lyft.
Yes.
Should Tesla buy Lyft? So I posted this on X. Uber's market cap is 150 billion.
Right.
Which is insane.
Lyft is like 5.
Well, I don't know what the market did today or yesterday, but Lyft's market cap when I looked at it was 5 billion. So I think Tesla could acquire Lyft for less than probably $8 billion, $7 billion. Like $7 billion at the time I saw this would be a 40% premium, right? That's pretty compelling. And I would think Lyft shareholders would jump at the opportunity, right? So it's not to acquire the business of humans driving cars.
Mhm.
It's the value of the customer database. And I'm not saying they need to buy it today. I'm
Right.
saying when they're ready to launch the Robotaxi network, that would be the time I would buy Lyft, or, you know, a few months before. The data that I don't think people appreciate is, first of all, there's customer data.
Mhm.
How do you ramp your network of ride sharing? Well, you have a customer database. You just, all of a sudden, Lyft app now says, you know,
Right.
get a Tesla Robotaxi. Oh, and that, boy, that's you know, you open up a rideshare app and here's your ride options. Now the top option is a Robotaxi that costs, you know, half the cost of a human driven car, or, you know, 20% less probably, because you're going to take your market cap, you're going to take your margin for a while. Everyone's going to, half the users will choose Robotaxi when it's available. So the customer acquisition super, you don't need to get people to install the Tesla app. You just build it into the Lyft app. Right? Well, that's that problem solved. And then there's data that I think people don't appreciate, which is like, where do customers like to be picked up?
Mm-hmm.
Where do they like to be dropped off? Where are customers likely to want their first rides of the day? Where are the last rides of the day likely to end up? This helps you figure out, where do I want to position my robo-taxis in the morning? And then when you have all this data, you might know, okay, here's where our chargers are. This is the likely pattern of usage. When am I going to send this? We're going to have an optimizations thing to say, when am I going to send this robo-taxi to charge? When am I going to send that robo-taxi to charge? Because you may have some robo-taxis charging middle of the day. And you're also going to have robo-taxis charging in the middle of the night.
Right.
Right. So, you know, my rough guess is you think the vast majority of robo-taxis will operate from 6 a.m. to midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Right. To some extent.
Something 4 a.m. to midnight.
I mean, the heavy demand is going to be from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. But there's still pretty substantial demand during the day and in the evening, you know, especially on Friday and Saturday nights. There's gonna be high demand. There's gonna be all kinds. There's this whole pattern of what the rideshare demand is going to be, and you get all that data.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Uber has superior data,
Right.
but not that much better. It's not 30 times better. It's probably twice as good. But you can get all that data for, you know, a hell of a lot less. And so I think that it might make sense. And, you know, look, Tesla's a $600-700 billion company. I don't know what the market cap is right now. They can acquire, I think they can acquire Lyft for cash.
So Warren, the alternative to that would be that on 10/11, every single Tesla vehicle that's already on the road today can become a supervised robotaxi, until they can be until they're 100% automated, and Tesla owners can put their cars out there with them in them, or they can hire a 20-year-old kid for $20 an hour to be the person who sits.
Probably has to be 21.
21. Okay, whatever it is. But anyway, so now you get the same data that you're looking for, actually better data, because it's your system, your methodologies. You get that data with these supervised drivers, and the Tesla owners get to begin to start their businesses and get a feel for the business side of it and how it's going to work, even though they're still using supervised.
I think the business works completely differently in an unsupervised network than in a supervised network. I mean, my image of it is, I'm not a 9-to-5er, right? But you have a 9-to-5 job. The car drops you off to work at 8:45, and you press the "Go Make Me Money" button. The car goes out and does rides. 4:45, the car arrives at the office, right? To pick you up.
That's the ultimate solution. I'm talking about in the interim, you have that same, you have my situation, okay, which is I've got one, we have a Model Y. We're going to get a Cybertruck. When we get the Cybertruck, the other car is irrelevant. I don't need it anymore. I put it out all the time. I just let them have it, or I go buy a second one. And I just
so there's two different types of owners.
Yeah.
There's the owners who have a 9-to-5 job, and there's the owners like you and me who are like, I'll run at 6 a.m. to midnight. I don't need the car.
Yeah. Yeah. So those could get started, not necessarily.
And if I need a ride,
yeah,
I'll probably just take some other robo-taxi and let the car make money.
Right.
Like it's actually, you probably don't want your car for yourself. Unless you're going on a trip. Like you might say, all right, I'm going on a road trip. I'm going to take my car out of service for a few, but then you do the math. I'm like, well, how much is it going to cost me to take the car out of service for the trip? I could just take a Robotaxi there.
Yes. Yes.
And another Robotaxi back. I actually think that you're going to own your car and you're just going to send your car out from 6 a.m. to midnight. And when you need to go somewhere, you'll just take a Robotaxi. And like I live at a transit station in Bangkok.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't need a car. Like I've actually thought about buying a Tesla while I'm in Thailand because I do road trips. This is like a little bit of a side note, but we roughly target doing one road trip a month. I think we're actually going to end up doing less than one road trip. Like a week a month, we go on a road trip. Well, I can rent a Tesla for about $400 for a week, $500 for a week, let's say.
Yeah.
If I buy a Tesla, my car payment is like $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
But I only drive it 1 week a month.
Right.
So if I was, and if you understand Bangkok, and I think this is true of a lot of large cities, driving really sucks inside a city. Or when you live at a transit station, 90% of the trips you're going to take, like most of these, I don't even go anywhere. But if I go somewhere, in fact, I'm going somewhere after this conversation. Well, I take the MRT to Bang Sue and I take the SRT Red Line to, I forget the name of the stop, and I hop off, and the store I want to go to, I need to buy running shoes, and size 13 double E, whatever, is very hard to find in an Asian country.
Yes, I betcha.
So it turns out that Brooks Running Shoes has an outlet at this location, and they have this particular shoe, and I message them on Facebook or whatever, and okay, we have the shoe at this location, and we'll have it ready for you. And I don't need a car to get there.
Yeah.
There are places in Bangkok where it's awkward without a car. We do occasionally drive somewhere, but mostly it's like, well, why don't we just go to this other place? We can take the transit stop.
Sure.
We even have a boat. Like I could show you, but I'm looking at the Chao Phraya River, and there's a boat service.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can go anywhere on the river for 50 cents. Like the transit system is like, $1.50.
Yeah.
River, I can get there for 50 cents, and it's actually sometimes quicker. Not super comfortable. It's not air conditioned, but it's covered. So if it rains, we're sort of covered. So yeah, like I do think that there's a class of owners who are going to be like, I'm going to buy the vehicle. I'm just going to put it out from 6 a.m. to midnight, bring it home to charge it at home. But I think the vast majority of robotaxis will actually be owned by fleets.
Mm-hmm.
You have this whole question of how's the fleet going to operate. And so I think also because the robotaxi now, I think there's a value in what you say, and that people driving supervised Tesla robotaxis will go out and they'll be generating some of the similar data that you're talking about.
Right.
But I think it's really hard to make it work. I think creating that network, that rideshare business is a real challenge. I haven't seen any hint from Tesla that they're doing it. So I just don't think that's super likely. I don't want to say it's impossible. It's definitely, you're not the only one to say it. Other people are saying they're going to do it.
Well, yeah, I know.
Kathy Wood has been pushing them to do a supervised
pretty much all my co-hosts at this point believe it will be supervised at first.
Yeah, what I could see is Tesla has all these and Omar disagreed with me strongly about this. Omar Kazi, Omar's blog.
Yes.
I could see, let's say you have 1,000 ADAS operators
mm-hmm.
who are testing FSD. Could you say, all right, we're going to start having the ADAS operators run rideshare?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start in San Francisco, say, where we've got, we're going to pick a city where we've got 50 ADAS operators. Maybe it's Jacksonville where Chuck Cook's left turn is, right? And we've got a whole bunch of people who are testing Chuck's left turn. We can only do it so many times a day. Let's send them out there and take and do some rides. Like it could be a part of their job to 4 hours a day do rides.
Well, I mean, Waymo started this way. What is the other company in the United States that started?
Cruise.
They just started locally, and they just build it from there. I think. I
do think, but if I was going to do it, I probably would not do it with regular Tesla owners. I would do it with the ADAS operators. One of the things that the ADAS operators, people don't appreciate this. They're not just driving the cars; they're taking copious notes.
Sure.
They're sending detailed, hey, here's what I'm seeing here. And I think the need for ADAS operators to give human feedback on how the various builds are working is becoming less because the cars are so good. that it's really just, all right, how many interventions are we getting?
Right.
And you know, I think they're able to identify bad moments without human ADAS operators now. So you have this army of, I'll call it 100 ADAS operators in the United States, or 1,000 ADAS operators in the United States. You know, if you don't need that human input as much anymore, give them at least 4 hours a day operating rideshare. At least in, you know, like maybe you've got 100 in California or 200 in California, let's say, and you just identify a city and concentrate them there and start operating it that way. And then maybe you expand it from there. But I would start with Tesla employees first. I wouldn't start with Tesla owners first.
No, that's cool.
With FSD beta as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you could move from there to, I mean, the thing I'm looking at is there's a lot of folks out there that are entrepreneurial. I mean, I talk to them all the time. I know, you know, again, bringing up Brian Wong's name again, but other people that are that have bought 10, 12, 15 Cybertrucks in anticipation, who are planning to buy 50 or 20.
130 was the biggest number I heard.
130, yeah. Already planning, already anticipating a time when they're going to have small fleets. I mean, it doesn't take much of a fleet to you know, really enhance your retirement.
Well, I think once the Robotaxi network goes live, in the early years, let's say the first 3 to 5 years, you're probably making $50,000 a year from your car.
Well, yeah.
So if you have 10 of them, you're making $500,000 a year from your car.
That's enough. You know, you can live on that.
And even if you're only making 20,000 a year from
your
car,
yes, yeah, it's a very nice.
100,000 a year to, you know, press a go make me money button every morning. You probably just programmed to go out at 6 a.m.
Absolutely.
And there's some work, you know, they come home at night, you charge this one, you charge that one, you know, maybe you're able to set up automated charging. I don't know. You know, I think a fleet of 130, you'd have to have employees.
Yeah, yeah. At some point, you have to get the darn employees again. Yeah. Anyway, that's just an idea. Obviously, quite frankly, when it first started bubbling up, I early on agreed with you 100%. I thought that they should. I first said Uber, and then I realized how much the market cap was on it, and then I suggested, like you did, Lyft. But the more we've had the conversation going on, it just seems like if Waymo could start from scratch and build this now up to 500,000 rides a week, you know, just by going city to city to city, they've done it themselves. So it seems like maybe they don't need the help at this point.
Well, I think Waymo is a bad model.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, whether they're a good model or a bad model, but I'm just saying they've accomplished the goal. They've got 500,000 people a week taking rides, or 500,000.
They're losing a lot of money.
And losing a lot of money. Well, that's
not the goal.
Yeah.
No, I think if you are, you know, the pitch is that when FSD works and it goes live everywhere. You flick a switch and you have a massive step change in the asset value.
I understand. I remember it well.
So the value of Lyft's data is that data is available nationwide. If you go city by city, then you've got to develop your data over time, and you've got to start small. And if you believe it drives better than human, then you want it to go right away. And I honestly don't think the long-term future is, I own a Tesla, I'm going to put it in the fleet. I think I would ask you the question, what percentage of current Tesla owners are going to do what we talked about and say, I'm just going to send my car out there when I need a ride, I'll just get a Robotaxi ride myself? What percentage of Tesla?
I've kind of decided it might be as low as 10%.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's 600,000 vehicles.
But that's not sufficient to build out the Robotaxi fleet Tesla wants.
But another 100,000 next year, another 100,000, and other people will start.
No, it's the Cybercab is produced at, you know,
right,
5 million units a year.
Specifically for that. Yeah.
I don't know if you and I have talked about this. I mentioned that I'm here in Thailand. I can get a ride and we took a taxi ride yesterday from 𝐒𝐚𝐽𝐬𝐚𝐲 to the MRT Ta Pra station, and it was 150 baht, which is less than $5. Mm-hmm. And my wife was pissed off that it was too expensive.
Too expensive, yeah.
Yes. For less than $5 for a taxi ride, it was probably 3 or 4 miles.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a crazy busy time. Like there was probably surge pricing. In fact, I did price a ride home in a Grab taxi, which is the equivalent of Uber, and it was like about $10.
Okay.
Right. We just went to a transit station that we live near the transit station. So it was easier to hop to the transit station and catch a transit ride home. But where we were was very crowded. There's a taxi line we could have waited in. The taxi line was crazy long. And sorry, I was getting to a point there, which is that ride in America would have been $20.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So a robo-taxi in America generates so much more revenue and so much more margin than a robo-taxi in Thailand. One of my theories, one of the things I'm passionate about again, is as I look at the future of the development of robo-taxis and Optimus robots, they will be used primarily in wealthy countries first.
Yeah, I heard you say that the other day.
The value of a robo-taxi ride, the revenue generation of a robo-taxi ride, the 10-mile trip in the US costs $25 to $30. In Thailand, it costs $6 I'm just saying on average.
Yeah.
So if you built a robo-taxi, where would you operate it?
Yeah. I think
Would
the
you operate it in America, or would you operate it in Thailand?
Yeah. The exception
So until the supply of robo-taxis in America drives down the price of rides to the point where it's roughly comparable to Thailand, because a robo-taxi would be cheaper than a human-driven vehicle in Thailand, but not that much because the drivers are so cheap.
Right.
The drivers are absurdly cheap. And you go to Vietnam where they're even cheaper. You go to Malaysia where they're slightly cheaper, right? There's different places. Even in Japan, taxi drivers probably make about half what Uber drivers make in terms of revenue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I see robo-taxis being deployed in wealthy countries first. And Optimus, same thing. If human labor at a McDonald's in Los Angeles is getting paid $25 an hour, and human labor in Thailand is, minimum wage is $10 a day.
Yeah.
For like a 10-hour day, it's like $1 an hour. I think in China, the wages are now around $2 an hour.
Yeah.
Wages in Thailand are less than China.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of countries where, and I know there are college graduates making $500 a year here, $500 a month.
$500
a month. So the value of, same thing with Optimus is with Robotaxi. You're going to deploy your Optimus robots in wealthy countries first because the value of their quote labor is much higher.
Yeah.
That you're going to get compensated more for what they do.
There's going to be
I think they call it the digital divide, the AI divide. I don't think this applies to software AI. The ChatGPT you can sell everywhere, right? It doesn't matter. There's no advantage to not distributing, but you have a physical object. You have a choice of where you're going to put it.
Right.
Software, you just infinitely increase the volume. But with physical objects, real world AI, you're going to deploy them where they generate the most revenue first. So real world AI, there's going to be a real world AI divide. Wealthy countries are going to get real world AI, massively increasing abundance.
Yes.
And it's going to take 5-10 years of lag before that real world AI comes to poorer countries.
If you include China as a wealthy country, because China will be getting they may not get Optimus robots, but they will be getting robots by the millions, and they already have the automated driving
and robots. Yes, but I would bet that a large share of the robotaxis produced in China and Optimus robots or humanoid robots that are comparable real world AI robots will be exported.
Oh, they very well may be, and for all the reasons that you just stated. On the other side of the coin, I think what every country will have to look at, and this is another very long conversation, but energy and robots, robotic cars and especially robots, energy and robots in the future, just like in the past, is still going to be the thing that's going to determine wealth. And so any country in the world that's not paying attention to their status in terms of developing cheap energy and putting robots on the ground, they're going to be, to your point, it's going to be worse than what you're saying. They're going to be kind of left in the dust. Now, will they still actually be wealthier because of the wealth effect of all this? Yes, but they will be left even more in the dust than they are now compared to China, Europe, and the United States.
Yeah, just while we're talking about China, and what I see is a massive, China wants it for the productivity gains.
Yeah.
China wants to be as productive as possible.
Yeah.
When you talk about the great power relations and this idea, the power struggle between great powers, China is massively more productive than the United States.
Right.
You know, the fact that they use
manufacturing.
I would say in general, but yes, especially in manufacturing. The fact that they use their market for semis is $1 million a year in America. North America's market is 300,000 a year. That says a lot. And if you are looking at the future potential of a great power rivalry, China wants to increase their productivity, and Optimus and Robotaxi and other things increase their productivity. But I'm going to go on a turn here. If Kamala wins the election and she starts to make more moves against Elon, I think Elon's a forward thinker. If I was Elon and I had to choose, what country do I want to live in? What country do I want to be productive in? I might choose to go to China. I think the Chinese government appreciates Elon's contribution to humanity. You know, I'm not saying they're great. I'm not saying they don't have issues, right? But if I was Elon, I'd be like, well, if I want to accelerate, you know, getting to Mars, the Chinese government will support me, and I'll just build a new rocket team in China. I can lead Chinese rocket engineers just like I led rocket engineers in America. I would just fucking pick up sticks. I would, you know, you can't move SpaceX to China. You can't move Tesla. Tesla's already in China,
right?
But he just makes a deal with the Chinese government, says, "Hey, I want to start building."
I appreciate you coming on as always. You were, I think, maybe my first or second guest ever back a couple of years ago, and
I'm honored.
There you go. All right. So we'll have to do it again soon. And to all of you out there, it has been great talking to you.